Welcome to Hub City Now with your host, Tyrone Tony Reed.
Good morning and welcome to Hub City Now with your host, Tyrone Tony Reed Jr. We're going to continue our interview with John Pollono, actor, screenwriter, acclaimed and award-winning playwright. We're going to go right back into the interview, part 2 of our interview with John Pollono, who is the screenwriter of the upcoming movie Stronger, starring Jake Gyllenhaal, which comes out in theaters this Friday, September 22nd. Be sure to check it out. And we're going right back into that interview right now. There are some questions that my wonderful, darling wife, trying to get some good points.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I have a wonderful, darling wife as well.
She wanted to know what your thoughts are on the future of the film industry. There are so many people who are shooting and promoting films independently. Mm-hmm. And how do you think that changes the industry or is changing the industry?
Well, look, I think it's really hard now, harder than ever maybe, to make a non-superhero studio movie.
Right.
But the smaller movies, the distribution model, with streaming, and there's a lot more opportunities that you can shoot a movie and get it seen by a large audience. Maybe not at a theater, but you can get it seen, somebody just getting to check it out.
Right.
It's a really great time for that, and the tools, the technology to make a movie are great right now. Mm-hmm. I think the industry's, figuring some stuff out. TV has really kind of figured out a lot of ways to tell compelling stories. There's a lot of content out there with various distribution. And I think film is going to adapt to that. But look, I don't think, to me, there's nothing like being in a darkened theater with a bunch of strangers watching something on
experience
screen.
Something together.
I never want that gone.
Right.
That being said, we have these great 4K TVs we watch at home. It's still it's still very powerful, just not as communal. But I think things are going to change in the near future. But I think there'll always be a way. There's always going to be a need for stories.
Okay. She also wanted to know what your top 3 favorite films of all time are and why, or you can put plays in there too, because I know you're a playwright. So,
well, look,
or some of your favorites.
No, totally. Yeah, absolutely. There's it's just like kind of where I am at the moment. There's definitely some of my favorite plays I've read and I've never even seen, so I won't necessarily go there because I think like a theater in the same way can be like transformative because you're breathing the same air as the performers. And I've probably never laughed as loud as I have at a funny play. I've never sobbed as hard as I did at like a sad play, just because there's something about that. But look, some of my favorite movies have not changed since I was a kid, meaning like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Lawrence of Arabia, Godfather. But as I get older, like for example, when I was young, I loved the movie Goodfellas. I was like, I'm Italian. I was like, that's awesome. But then, you get a little older and I watched Raging Bull and I was like, oh my God, that's a masterpiece. I just didn't kind of get it. So it doesn't have the same fun factor as it did when I saw, Goodfellas, but that's a movie that I'm learning to appreciate. Casablanca is amazing. One of the producers I've worked with, who I've worked with as a co-writer, and he's produced some stuff I did, is this guy Scott Silver, and he made a movie called The Fighter, which I just thought was like the bar set for movies about the area that I grew up in. That one kind of that really blew me away. And then one of my favorite writers is Kenneth Lonergan, who wrote he just did Manchester by the Sea, but he did a movie called You Can Count on Me, which just came around at a point in my life when I saw that to this day it's one of the most sort of impactful movies I've ever seen. I just think it's beautiful, and I that kind of nailed me. Look, I could just go on and on. To me, it's a really, really tough question, but a good question. And and Moonlight, I would say, which came out recently, really that sort of rewired me a little bit. I was sort of undone by that movie.
How does an original story break through for you?
What do you mean?
How do you come up with your characters and storylines that you?
Right. That's a really good idea. I think Stephen King put it best, and he really solidified it for me. He's like, you always have 2 really strong ideas, and then they clap together, and it sparks like a chemical reaction. So I think you have a great idea for a character, and it kind of might sit there, but you could And then one day you'll have an idea like, oh my God, what about this? Like in the case of Small Engine Repair, there was sort of a vibe I was going for, like there was sort of a seed of it, where the seed of conflict and the themes sort of started. And then the characters were created around that. Like you never create a bunch of characters who agree on something. You always want conflict from that, and you never want characters to agree. But in the case of Stronger, they're real life people, but of course you have to take some dramatic license to make it work in the story. Right. And I think the hardest thing for me is always, and then this other thing I'm working on, it's always like to be disciplined enough to make a choice about what story you're telling. Okay. You can't tell everything. Right. And like I love characters, I love dialogue, I love tangential funny, I like riffing, and it's a real easy to go riff for 20 pages. Right. And that's not going to help your story. So that's what especially you can do more of that in theater. Theater's, the language of a scene works, and your entertainment is, your special effects are like the verbal gymnastics, so to speak. But in a screenplay, you have to be so concise. So that struggles. But yeah, I think when all that stuff kind of clicks, and you know what your story is, and then you stick by a theme to really inform, to be like used as the prism to look through everything, to really inform that. But I mean, for me, it's always like if I hear something and I can kind of see the structure of it, and it really, unless it really evokes something in me, I know I can't make it evoke something in someone else. Right. And not everything's overly emotional, but I mean, for certainly the most Stronger, for example, when I was writing their big breakup scene, like, I mean, I had real tears, man. I was sitting there writing, and I'm just thinking about it, and I'm playing this music, and I'd stop, and I would just replay it in my head, and it was like I had an emotional reaction. And that's when I know it's working to some extent, Yeah. So I think you kind of use that.
Because I've had those moments when I'm writing a novel, and I go, oh my goodness, that is sad.
Oh, right. I didn't know you were a novelist. That's
great. I'm working on my third and fourth novel at the same time.
That's fantastic. Wow, you are brave.
It's a struggle.
Do you have kids?
Not yet.
I was going to say, hey, you got two novels with kids, man.
No, not yet. We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk more with actor, screenwriter, and award-winning playwright John Pollono. We'll be right back in just a few moments.
JJ 97.7.
Honey, the summer heat is tearing up our tires. They are so bald. We need new tires.
I'm sorry, but money's tight right now.
I just heard about R&R Tire Express. We can get a brand new set of tires for just $20 down with R&R's pay-as-you-go program. Then we choose a payment plan that fits our budget. And installation, flat repair, and roadside assistance are free.
No, really? But don't we need good credit?
Nope. At R&R Tire Express, everyone's approved. Just need a pay stub and a few forms of ID.
You're right. We need to be safe on the road and get new tires. And R&R Tire Express's pay-as-you-go program is a perfect option for us. Let's go to R&R right now.
Thanks, honey. Riding on new tires and not breaking our budget is peace of mind.
At R&R Tire Express, get the tires you need today for just $20 down with R&R's Everyone's Approved Pay-as-you-go program. In Jackson, 2089 North Highland, rnrtires.com.
Everybody needs a little R&R.
We love the city of Brownsville. We have a great mayor who is keeping the city operating under budget, in compliance with transparency, zero debt, with the surplus and unemployment at a 4-year low of 4.2%. And the mayor couldn't do all of that without the help of our great city council, police department, fire department, city workers, business owners, and the citizens of Brownsville and Haywood County. Brownsville is the heart of the Tennessee Delta and a great place to live, work, and play. We celebrate music, cotton, and the beauty of the Tennessee Delta. Brownsville is located conveniently between Memphis and Nashville, and it's home of the blues pioneer Sleepy John Estes, the West Tennessee Delta Heritage Center, and the Tina Turner Museum at Flag Grove School, the childhood school of Miss Tina Turner. We want you to come visit our city, museums, and eat some great food. We can't wait to see you. If you want more information, just visit brownsvilletn.gov.
JJ 97.7.
Welcome back to Hub City Now. We are back with John Pollono. What would you tell your younger self about working in the industry that would have benefited you when you started out?
That's a really good question. I think I probably lost 10 years of my creative life because I was too much of a chicken to admit I wanted to do what I want to do. I think it waited for permission, waited for someone else to do it. I think a lot of that is, I mostly own that. I think part of that is where I grew up. being not, hey, get a job, do this. And, also growing up in sort of a sports orientated, like tough guy crowd where I know I can't swear because it's the radio.
Right,
you
right,
can
right.
get the idea.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're sort of afraid of that. When I say closeted, I mean that in the sense of like, it's hidden.
Right.
And I think that was a weakness. And if I could say to my younger self, it would be like, look, do what you want to do and don't be afraid.
Right.
And you're going to fail a bunch, but you're going to get there if you stick with it.
Right.
So for me, it was really, really hard. I was fighting both those things. I mean, like I remember taking acting classes and loving it and talking to, my buddies or whatever. And I'm like, it's stupid. It's just whatever. It is what it is. All these idiots go there, whatever. And you got to do these exercises. But deep inside, I was like, wow, this is great. This is, I'm tapping into something.
Right.
This is who I am.
Right.
But being afraid to admit that.
Right.
And the same with writing. And you expose so much of yourself, as you know, when you write. And I was afraid of getting it out because if it was rejected, then I would be like,
you would feel rejected.
But not only, which you have to, that's part of it.
Right.
You don't always get it right.
Right.
And some of my best stuff, I don't get right my first time. And it's like, okay, where does that go? And those mistakes lead it. It's like you're building something. You know what I mean? Like you don't take the chisel out and sculpt it in 10 seconds.
Right.
But it's like, where is it? Where do you stick to it? But I was so worried that if I was getting critiqued that I wouldn't have the strength to continue on the path. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like you're always looking for someone else's permission. So I would say, find that strength to not need other people to give you permission and to be just tougher about that. I thought I was the toughest kid, but when it came to that stuff, I was not.
Right.
We're
going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to talk more with actor, screenwriter, and award-winning playwright John Pollono. We'll be right back in just a few moments. Welcome back to Hub City Now. We are back with John Pollono. All right, I think that's all her questions.
Oh, great. Those are good ones.
And you just gave one of my questions with the advice. What advice would you give to those who want to act or write? Your answer just a second ago was perfect.
Well, I mean, I would say like if you want to make a career as an actor, you're probably going to have to live in Los Angeles, or New York, probably. Not necessarily. And I know they're shooting stuff all over the place, but I mean, I think now, especially talking about the technology and stuff, is just do it. Field of dreams, do it, and they will come. It's like create stuff. Right. As an actor, as a professional actor, to really get paid, it's very frustrating because, I mean, some of the greatest actors I know, my wife included, doesn't work as much as she should. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that's hard because you got to get permission to do it. Well, sometimes you have to give yourself permission. And, whether that is like doing a play, shooting some little thing, you just got to create, you got to do it. So it ties back into what we're saying is like, don't wait for people to give you permission. Right. Give yourself permission. But then at the same time, I honestly think the best advice is don't be an a-hole.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Be like a good person.
That's right. Because people remember you.
They do. And you know what? Unless you're a celebrity who can get a $70 million greenlit by your name alone, and there's not a lot of those. Right. Unless you're that, there's many people that can do what you can do. That's right. As a writer, as an actor, as a director. So be somebody that you're like, hey, you bring the best out of other people. And I think that's the way to go.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. I wish we had more time to talk to you. Oh, wait a minute. One more thing. Tell us about the Temblors.
Oh, yeah.
Because your play Rules of Seconds premiered this new initiative.
Correct.
Tell us about that.
Great. Yeah. So Temblors is a really exciting, cool group. So it's there's a few of them in the country, but this is the first one that I know of in LA. And what we are is we're a group of 7 playwrights and who really reflect the diversity of LA. And it's the idea of it is that we create and produce our own material as a way to kind of show that LA is a very viable theater town in terms of creating new works. And I've done plays in New York, and New York is amazing, but LA as well has this great energy about it. So we kind of work and we dramaturg each other's work and we support each other. It's like writer driven. And in this case, we went and did this play and it was awesome. I mean, it came out great and we learned a ton from it. I mean, there was stuff we did amazing, artistically unparalleled. We learned a lot about it. We made a lot of mistakes and we'll, kind of continue to it. So the idea is that we each produce one of our original plays and then we hand over the collective to 7 new writers and then just kind of continue being.
So how long do you all stay in the collective?
Well, you stay into it until you're, in theory, we're probably looking at another 2 or 3 years. I mean, look, it's taking longer now because we're sort of building it building the ship as we're like sailing it.
Right.
But ideally, we would like to get to a point where we're doing like 2 plays a year.
Okay.
So then it would be like a 3-year commitment, and then boom, and then you.
Right.
You
That's awesome.
in there. Yeah.
That's awesome. Can you tell us about the dark comedy that you're developing with for FX?
Oh yeah, no, that's so that's actually a good segue because one of the fellow Temblor members is a good friend of mine, Kemp Powers, who's a journalist and a great writer. He wrote a play called One Night in Miami, which was a huge hit. It was actually Olivier nominated. It was about the true story that Malcolm X, Muhammad Ali, Sam Cooke, and Jim Brown were all in a hotel room together, motel room together. Wow. No one knows what happened in there, and this play is the sort of fictionalized, historically fictional version of what went on. And it's a great play. And it really just tapped into something. He's done it all over the place. So anyway, he's a great writer, and he and I kind of, I'm white, he's black. And we kind of always had this really interesting relationship where he grew up in Brooklyn, and we grew up with similar backgrounds in the sense of like what our family dynamics were and all that stuff. But we always had this relationship where we just talked really openly about race. In a sort of unfiltered way, asking, I could ask him stuff that I knew may come across as offensive, but hey, like it's coming from a good place. And he was able to say, hey, look, man, I'm going to give you a straight answer and vice versa. And it just lent itself to just like kind of a healthy discourse. And this was years and years ago. And then, as the world is changing, and we created the show called My First Black Friend, which we sold to FX, which is still kind of getting, juggled around. Who knows? And it was sort of at the base, inspired by our sort of unfiltered conversations. It's like a dark half-hour comedy that's really raw and truthful about race relationships.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm really happy with how it came out. And really, it feels really, feels real pertinent. But I mean, I consider myself very lucky that I have people like Kemp in my life that and this is, to me, it's like what's so crucial is that, it's so complicated right now. I mean, you live in Tennessee, and it's like it's even more complicated than many places, and how we just need to have these kind of honest conversations based on patience and love. And hey, I might say something that that might scrub you the wrong way, but know that I'm not trying to.
Yeah, I just want to know. Just tell me.
That's what it is. Yeah. And in Kemp is one of the smartest dudes I know. So he, and then he doesn't take. He's not like, let me hold your hand. So it's like, hey man, and you appreciate that, and that's you need friends like that.
Right.
So anyway, we created this show about it, and we're kind of shopping it around to see if it ever gets made.
That's awesome.
I kind of think it will be.
It sounds good. Yeah. It sounds really good. Well, thank you again so much for being here with us. This has been John Pollono, who. Oh, man, it's been an honor just to have you here.
Oh, thanks so much, man.
Actor, screenwriter, playwright. Be sure to go out and see Stronger on September 22nd. Be rooting for him for Best Adapted Screenplay. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the news. Hello, and welcome back to Hub City Now. This is Tyrone Tony Reed Jr., and we are in our news segment portion of the show. We have with us Shanika Douglas, the office manager of Crime Scene Examiner News. Thank you for joining us, Shanika.
Thank you.
You're going to tell us what we can expect to see in the Crime Scene Examiner News, which is on stands right now. Tell us what's going on.
This week in the Crime Scene Examiner News, we have the News for the Nosy, area mugshots from Jackson, Humboldt, and Maryland, and I think I'm working on putting some Crockett and Chester County mugshots in there too this week.
Okay.
We also have the latest local, state, and national crime news, including reports from a recent meeting between the Jackson-Madison County branch of the NAACP and the Jackson City Council concerning local marijuana possession policies. So if you don't want your name listed in the crime scene section, don't go to jail. On the with the good news inside, we have article with Ray Jones. He has the West Tennessee Outdoors. He's talking about the increased number of female bikers.
Oh, okay. I know a couple.
I've seen a lot of them around too. Downtown Ricky Brown Beat. He's highlighting the crime scene reader of the week. He attended the African Street Festival, so he has pictures from there. So if you were at the African Street Festival, it's a good possibility you'll be in the crime scene, the good news section.
Right, that's good.
And they have a little news about the 3rd annual Bells Community Picnic. In sports, we have Lane football, Bethel, UT Martin, and TSU football. I think somebody went to the Southern Heritage.
Oh, okay.
And,
So
got pictures of that.
Okay.
I think it's the 100 Black Men, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
The 100 Black Men attended the
Southern Heritage,
Southern Heritage Classic.
That's cool.
And the name has changed from the West Tennessee Examiner newspaper to the Crime Scene Examiner News, with the good news inside. So if you're looking for the community news, just pick up a crime scene and open it up, and it's in there.
All right. What's the contact information for the Crime Scene Examiner?
You can call us at 731-300-5047. You can email us at Crime Scene Examiner News. Crime Scene is one word. At gmail.com. Crime Scene Examiner News at gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, the Crime Scene Examiner News. On Twitter, on Twitter we're at C_S_E_news. That's a lot of
underscores.
It was a lot of. It was hard to find a name. Yeah. So we're all on social media. And you can find us on our web. You can find news posted daily on our website at csenewsnow.com.
Okay. Any news currently going on that you'd like to talk about that sparked your interest?
Recently, it was. I think yesterday was not yesterday, but this week was 9/11.
Right.
But I didn't hear a lot of people talking about 9/11. It was something about some girl in Chicago that got murdered
in the hotel in the walk-in freezer.
That's the main thing that was talked about.
Yeah, that's sad. That's really hard.
I thought that was real terrible.
And locally, we have the Holly Bobo trial going on.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's still going on by the time this broadcast, but that sounded pretty emotional on Monday, where the mom passed out while testifying. I mean, that's a hard thing all the way around.
And it's been a long time coming for that too.
It's very, very long. The hurricanes Harvey and Irma are finally out of here, and I think Jose is behind.
Yeah,
Irma.
Jose. I heard some people saying jokes like, Jose won't make it to America because Trump won't let him in.
Oh my, wow.
It was funny, but
That's
not
crazy.
funny.
But yeah, so we're still praying, and our thoughts are with those people who had to sit through and ride through that, and people who lost loved ones during those hurricanes. If you can give to, there are a lot of different organizations that are out helping those people who get back on their feet. So
yes, I've heard of a lot of churches that are going to Texas. They're planning. They've told me that they're planning a trip to Texas, and then they're going to turn around and
go to
come
Florida.
back, collect again, and then go to Florida.
That's cool. That's
So
what we're
if
supposed to be doing.
you have any donations, there are a lot of charitable organizations. I can't name any at this moment, but there are a lot of charitable organizations that are taking up donations. Just send whatever you can: clothes, shoes, hygiene products are top on the list. I think underwear. Somebody told me that they're really in need of underwear for men and women, men, women, and kids, but mainly like adults.
All right. Well, that's so just make sure you all do what you can, because we may need help one day, and we may be we don't want people to go.
The aftermath of the hurricane now with all this rain.
Right, we're having that rain. Yeah. Trying to think of anything else that's going. But with the hurricanes and everything else is quiet. We're not hearing that much about Trump and Russia.
No.
Or North Korea. It's all quiet for right now, because everybody else is out helping and trying to take care of other people. Again, we just went past the 16th anniversary of September 11th, and I guess some people are just trying. I don't want to say forget about it. They're trying to move past it.
Mm-hmm.
I was watching. I guess when Bishop Jakes had his own has his own TV talk show now. Back when he first started, he talked to this couple whose daughter was killed during the attacks. And they were just talking about how they handled that, because a lot of people don't understand that for a long time there were no remains for people to get. So they had their funerals, and then after doing the digging and stuff, they found remains, and then they had another funeral or memorial service, and that's a lot to have to go through. And I know that this couple, the father, I think the second funeral that they had was on his birthday. So every time it comes around every year, he's reminded of this is when we had our daughter's remains, and so it's just a lot. I mean, that's a lot to have to think about every year and hear the names called out again. And I guess some stations have decided not to rerun. I know earlier when they first started observing the tragedy every year, they would broadcast it like it was happening all over again. They would start at like 8:30 and you'd see the Today Show broadcast or whatever show it was on, and then you see the first plane hit. I mean, it was just like watching it happen all over again.
I didn't see that at all.
Yeah, they didn't do that this week.
I just saw a few people posting in remembrance
don't forget,
and hashtag 9/11, but it wasn't I didn't see any documentaries or anything about it.
Right. But we don't want to forget what happened to those people, the lives that were lost, and we want to be ever vigilant because it could happen again. We don't want it to, but it could, and we just want to be respectful of the people who are grieving still. Kids who never knew their mom and their dad because they were taken so early. So just remember to keep them in your prayers. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Baskerville Funeral Home, City of Brownsville, Crime Scene Examiner News, Nell Huntsman's Flower Box, R&R Custom Wheels and Tires Express, and Styles Men. And thank you to our guest, John Pollono, for coming on and talking to us about Stronger and talking to us about his life and his career. Make sure you go out and see Stronger, which will be rooting for John for his win for Best Adapted Screenplay, because I'm sure it's going to be a great movie. So you all have a wonderful week. Take care of one another. Look out for one another. And God bless you all. Talk to you next week.